Hey everybody, I have another new illustration to show you today. While working on this piece, saved a few in-progress images along the way so that I could go through and show you how a piece develops for me from a sketch into a finished illustration. Alright, let's get to it. Here's the initial sketch. I originally drew it back in July. It's November now. It's a portrait. I drew it all on my iPad Pro, the 12.9-inch one with the Apple Pencil. The app that I use is called Procreate. I decided to name it Flowing Formal because he's dressed up nice and neat in the suit and tie, but he also has some wild flowing hair going on. I think that kind of gives it a kind of cool contradiction of imagery. This portrait is pretty typical of my art style for people or characters. I like exaggerated and, in this case, elongated forms. He has a long face and neck, he's pretty skinny. I'm a pretty skinny guy, so that tends to get reflected in my art. Next up, I inked over the pencil lines with pen. The one I use is called the technical pen in Procreate. I did a tiny little bit of refinement for a few lines here and there, a little for his face shape, his nose, and his shoulders. I didn't have to do much because I already worked everything out while in the pencil drawing stage. I think it's better to do it that way and get all the major line editing done with pencil, because then when I get to the inking stage, it's quick and easy. All I have to do is trace over everything nice and neat. Next up, I add the base color. Pretty simple. I just make the layer with the lines, the reference layer, and do fills of color within those lines. I also added a couple lines in his lips for more definition. Not really much to say about this step, just pretty easy coloring. Now I get on to shading and detailing. I use the soft airbrush in Procreate for this part. For the shadowing, all I do is take the base color and then make it a few shades darker. In the future, I'd like to try and add more highlights to go along with the shadows. I did some in his hair, but I think using some more highlights throughout the piece would help. Having a range from light to middle to dark would probably make things even more dynamic. The shading I do here is super simple, but if you compare it to having just the base layer of color, I think having just that little bit really adds a lot. Without it, the image looks very flat, but with the shading, it's got a lot more pop and dimensionality to it. With that, the character is all finished, and lastly, I make the background. It's pretty simple again. I made it mostly the same way that I made in another piece I finished recently. This one here called Seeing Punk. They go together in a way. They both have a similar composition and mood to them. The way I made the background was I made a base layer of gray, and then with a paintbrush I kind of streaked over with varying levels of pressure to get the different levels of black and gray. I think it adds a sense of movement and energy to the piece. It also goes along with the direction of his hair. I think the monotone dark color of the background also completes the mood of the piece. That, along with the expression on his face, gives me a kind of ominous and tense feeling to the piece overall. Alrighty, that is about it. I hope you liked this illustration and seeing how some of my process goes. If you have any input, thoughts, or suggestions, leave them down in the comments. If you want to see more of my work, definitely subscribe to the channel and check out my website, Tumblr, and Instagram, all linked down in the description. Thanks for watching. See you next time.